All right. First time going live in a while, so bear with me here. And hopefully, eventually, we can start to get some people into the chat. I am trying to get back into doing this after taking 4 years off. So, this has been a fun journey to come back to, and it's something that we're going to keep doing for years to come because this is something that I love to do. So, we're going to go over Knicks Summer League game here. We're going to be following college basketball in general on this channel and also like a Knicks and Duke basketball focus here. So if you like that, please keep checking out the channel. So Knicks versus Nets today, really intriguing summer league game just because it started off. I mean, the score doesn't really matter, but it was just bizarre in that it started off with the Knicks up really big early against this Nets team. And then the Nets were able to come back and win the game. Really doesn't matter. So we'll move past that. Let's go over the Knicks draft picks, how they did. And then also I'll talk about a few other players on the Knicks Summer League roster that I thought were intriguing. So we'll go start off with the first round pick and work our way to the rest of the roster. So Pacome Dadiet, he he's very raw. He needs certainly some seasoning, right? But there's just a lot to like about him. I think it was a good upside pick at 25. There's other people that I may have picked there. Like I personally really like Bobby Clintman. But Daddy is 3 years younger than a guy like Bobby Clintman and is somebody who, yes, he clearly in these two games. Number one, I thought he was a bit better today than he was in game one, which is a good sign. And then number two, I felt like he just is a guy who doesn't lose his confidence. Like he started out shooting poorly game first summer league game. Same thing happened in game two and just didn't seem to affect him. You didn't see him stop running. You didn't see him kind of give like negative body language, kind of hang his head and all that stuff. Like he just seemed like a guy who was like, yeah, these are my shots. I'm comfortable. I'm missing them, but I feel good about the looks I was getting. And for the most part, I agree. Like there's a couple of off the dribble shots that maybe weren't the best, but at the same time, he's got to kind of figure that out. And like I said, for the most part, really good shot selection. And then on defense, he competed. Not necessarily like the greatest on ball defender right now, but he certainly competes, and it's a really good sign to see. Now, moving to the next draft pick for the Knicks, Tyler Kolek, who wasn't quite as impactful in this game as he was in the first summer league game. Same number of assists. You look at the box score, 7 assists. I think the bigger difference in this one versus the first one is his shot wasn't falling. And that to me is, I think, going to be a little bit of a concern with Kolek. Personally, every time I watch Tyler Kolek doing scouting this past season, he shot 39% from three. Every game I watched, he couldn't hit a three, or he would hit 1 for 4, 1 for 5, etc. So I don't know what it is, but I feel like every time I watch this guy play, he can't hit a shot. And that continued today. I feel like I'm his bad luck charm, but he's a really good passer. He's got to be able to shoot and score so teams respect him enough to let his passing shine. So that's something I'm going to be monitoring the next time he plays in the summer league, and something that we'll have to see as it develops over his career. And then the opposite side of the ball, his defense, I thought was solid, but not spectacular. And that's another area where we're going to have to see whether he can hold up. I do think, with the Knicks getting campaign, having Deuce McBride on the roster as of now, there's a decent chance Kolek plays a good amount of time in the G League, at least in the first few months of the season. And that'll be good for him to just get more consistent reps and game experience. I know he's a very experienced player, but I think it's better for somebody to be playing in the G League than just sitting on the end of the bench. So that's kind of where I saw Kolek today. Maybe a little bit of a backslide compared to game one. I thought Hukporti, Ariel Hukporti, the center, looked bit better than the first summer league game. Not a whole lot better, but a bit better. he had some more flashes, I would say. It's really interesting to me, like, he really gets himself in, like, Hartenstein-esque positions, and he is younger, he's, like, 4 or 5 years younger than Hartenstein, so there's still time for him to develop, and you've seen, like, little bits and flashes of, like, touch around the rim, ability to dribble a ball, ability to pass, but compared to if we're gonna compare him to Hartenstein, because right now the Knicks are looking for that backup center, and that's really all that's in my mind. He just doesn't put it together consistently enough. And then there's too many times where it just looks bad. So I'm curious, can he make another small improvement going from, game 2 to game 3? And then on the defensive side of the court, I thought he was okay. There's a couple of times where he contested shots at the rim. There's a block that I thought he did a good job contesting, although I don't think he was credited. He was not credited with the block there. I thought he did a good job. And he is pretty athletic for a big man, so he moves his feet pretty well, but just not as impactful as you would like. Now, we'll move into some of the other guys who played. So the two other starters for the Knicks, Dwayne Washington and Jacob Toppin, I thought early on did a good job of just bringing a mentality to the game of defense first and hustle. And Washington was scoring early. I thought as the game went on, those two guys, their play kind of faded a bit. Washington, I felt like had the ball too much and didn't get other guys as involved as he could have. And I felt like Jacob Toppin, although he started out well, he may have actually picked up an injury. He fell pretty hard at some point, I think, in the third quarter. So maybe that's part of it as well with him. I thought in terms of the two, if you look at the box score, Dwayne Washington had a better game, but I felt like Jacob Toppin showed some flashes for a guy who could fit into the ecosystem a little bit better than Washington, who's more a guy who needs the ball in his hands, is going to look better in the summer league than he might playing with the big club. And then lastly, two more guys I just want to talk about quickly would be Skapintsev and Rokas Jakubaitis. So both those guys came off the bench. They've been in the Knicks, let's say, like, roster, or the Knicks have owned their rights, maybe a better way to put it, for the past 3 years, respectively. Skapintsev, I'm sorry, I'm definitely butchering his name. I gotta practice that one. Has been playing in the G League. He looked pretty good the first game, and I thought he looked better today. But there is, the one thing I do like about him, he has shown the ability to knock down like a 18-foot mid range, which definitely could space the floor a little bit. He doesn't seem to have, he's not very quick. He can, guard around the rim, and he can certainly rebound and pass. And I thought overall he's looked better than Hukporti in these two games. He is 4 years older than Hukporti, and we're just looking. We're just looking for that backup center. So both those guys, I think, have really important games to come to just continue to give their case for why they should get an opportunity at that backup 5 spot for the Knicks, and compete with Jericho Sims as of right now. That's all that's on the roster. And Jakubaitis, he has some flashes. I feel like he's a guy who he's not playing enough minutes to really see um, the real I guess dynamic or ability that he has. Like, he's just coming in for short flashes of time. And I think if he got an extended run, we could see a little bit more. Now, granted, that's going to be his role. If he does, come over to the Knicks, he's not going to play very many minutes. So it is important to see how he does in that. And he did hit a nice fadeaway mid-range shot to hit a buzzer beater, which was pretty cool. And he does a good job of just like creating space for himself. But it's hard to see like a clear role for him on the Knicks as of right now. So I'm very much in a wait and see mode with what he's going to do, whether he'll come over to the Knicks, or there were some rumors he was looking at joining another team in Europe. So I think that could be more likely. I believe he played for Real Madrid, maybe Barcelona this past season. So that's kind of my thoughts. Knicks Summer League versus the Nets game 2. some intriguing flashes from several guys, but I think Dadier has shown enough in these 2 games to say, like, I understand why the Knicks have taken a swing on him in the first round as an 18-year-old prospect. And in a couple years, this guy could be a big player. But I think it made sense based off what I've seen so far to make that pick. So I think more upside to come for Dadier and more summer league games tomorrow. See you guys then.